Let's begin.
Yes.
What are we talking about when we talk about the new Ukraine?
Ukraine has this glorious cultural past.
Which, by the way, was not a Russian construction, but a Norseman construction.
The war consists of Russian aggression, but most importantly, it consists of Ukrainian resistance.
No one ever expected Ukrainians to be so united fighting the aggressor.
I mean, these are very tough guys, right?
Freedom. Freedom as a value, which you are ready to die for.
We want Ukraine to win. It could end this year.
Hello and welcome to the 2023 Kyiv Jewish Forum hosted by the Jewish Confederation of Ukraine and Tablet magazine. Here comes an interview with Katharina von Schnurbein, the European Commission coordinator on combating antisemitism.
Hello, my name is Vladislav Davidson. I am Tablet magazine's European culture correspondent and a longtime reporter and journalist in Ukraine. Welcome back to the Kyiv Jewish Forum. And joining us now is Katharina von Schnurbein. Welcome. Katharina von Schnurbein is the first since 2015 European Commission coordinator on combating anti-Semitism. And her mandate is to liaison closely with European Jewish communities. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
That's great. Welcome.
And then to propose policies and also to implement those.
Propose policies and implement policies. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Kyiv Jewish Forum. So let's just start talking about the obvious. This war is a war of a dictatorial, authoritarian regime which is deploying toxic accounts of its own memory policy to accuse a liberal, democratic, open, free society of being Nazis. Amazing and amazingly crazy, but also needs to be pushed back against. What are you, as an European Union official, doing to push back on completely insane Russian accusations of Ukrainians being Nazis or heirs to Nazism?
Yeah, let me first thank you for the invitation to the Kyiv Jewish Forum and to really tell you from the bottom of my heart, but also with the whole College of Commissioners that held their first ever meeting in Ukraine with the Ukrainian government in Kyiv last week, to say that we fully support the Ukrainian struggle, and we want to make sure that Ukraine wins. Today, President Zelensky visited Brussels, and he echoed the voice of millions of Ukrainians who are aspiring to a European future. Ukraine is fighting for independence, for democracy, and also for a free Europe. We know this very well, and it has to be acknowledged. The sacrifices that are being made by the European people, the Ukrainian people, can never be met. But so far, the EU is mobilizing and has mobilized 67 billion in support of Ukraine over the past year. I think it's very important what you mentioned with regards to the false claims by Russia of denazifying Ukraine, of belittling and trivializing the Holocaust. This discourse and this rhetoric that has been widely used in the propaganda by Russia. We saw the latest comments by Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov accusing the West of seeking a final solution for Russia, which just added to the existing rhetoric and the claims that Ukrainians are all Nazis and we need to and Russia needs to liberate the world from Nazis. So we have been very critical and very clear on this. It's unacceptable. We saw also the effect this war has, for example, on Holocaust survivors. Yeah, they survived the concentration camps and the persecution of the Nazis, but some of them were killed because they did not survive Putin's war.
Yes, that's absolutely true, and it's absolutely tragic. We have multiple, I know at least half a dozen or 9 to 10 cases personally of survivors of Auschwitz, survivors of the camps, old women, mostly old women, who were killed in their beds or died of heart attacks very often. They're in their 80s or 90s. Yeah. Having survived.
It's absolutely
Nazism,
tragic.
It's absolutely horrific. What do we mean by never again when this has happened? How can we even say never again in that context?
Yeah, what we have seen in this context and in the context of the human rights atrocities that we have seen is has been to the harshest condemned, and it is with all of this in mind that we fully support the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian government in defending their freedom and ensuring that that they will be able to live their lives in full freedom again.
Tell me, this nasty, rancid Russian propaganda, this Kremlin propaganda, does it have an effect in the European Union on European member states' populations? Does it seep in, this poison, or is it of limited usage in terms of efficiency?
No, we have been very clear that it is unacceptable, and I think that many Europeans agree on this, and they see the perniciousness of it, and therefore also not only the European Union but also a lot of government representatives have pushed back and called out Russia for these false comparisons and for belittling the victims of the Holocaust in these comparisons. So I believe that this has made this in a way makes us even stronger. We have adopted a year ago an EU strategy on combating anti-Semitism and fostering Jewish life. This is not only true for the EU, but we clearly also want to make sure this goes beyond the EU to push back anti-Semitism with our partners and with international organizations, and to make sure there is no room for anti-Semitism. We also have to realize that this is one part of the pernicious Russian propaganda. We have a whole unit here in the External Action Service that specifically pushes back on Russian propaganda in connection with this war on all different forms, including also Holocaust denial and distortion.
Thank you. Maybe one final question, if you have a last moment. Can you talk about the way that the EU is helping specifically the subcategory of Ukrainian refugees, which is Ukrainian Jewish refugees? Obviously, this war has displaced everybody, millions and millions. I think up to 8 million Ukrainians are displaced. This doesn't even count IDPs, internally displaced people. We're talking about refugees now out of Ukraine. And obviously, something like 40% of Ukrainians have had to leave their houses. Almost 2 out of 3 kids in Ukraine have had to move from place to place. But you have millions and millions and millions of refugees, and you have a lot of them in European Union nations. And so a lot of them, by definition, demographically, will be Jewish. Is the EU doing something specific in the case of Ukrainian Jewish refugees?
Yes, so we work closely, in particular, also in the beginning of the year, but throughout this war, to help also Jewish Ukrainians leave Ukraine if they wanted to, and help them settle in the EU. Several EU member states have set up specific schemes to welcome the Jewish Ukrainians also into Jewish communities. And I have to say, a lot of Jewish communities have gone beyond themselves. They are often small, as you know, in the EU, to set up structures that can not only welcome the Jews from Ukraine, but also help them to integrate, to be part of the community, to feel at home. I was very touched to see at our public Hanukkah celebration that we had here in front of the European Union buildings in December, where Ukrainian refugees, musicians played, and they could continue their studies at the conservatoire. And so there is really this element of helping them along to be able to establish a life here while they have to be in exile.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us at the Kyiv Jewish Forum. Thank you for your hard work on behalf of European Jewish communities. Thank you so much for joining us today.
All the best to you and blessings.